Hello, my dear friend, and welcome to the Spiritually Engineered Podcast, where we take a deep dive into the human experience from a spiritual perspective. Come on in, and I invite you to stay. So I wanted to talk about an experience I had one Sunday in March. And it was a Sunday where it was a lot of business and a lot of social. So I was helping my friend out, Mara, and working with my other friend and friends I also consider colleagues because we do the same spiritual work, Neil. And we ended up tabling for like this expo that's like natural, holistic. They have booths, vendors giving a whole range of services, educators, etc. And so we were there as like an education, the way show is college, and that was pretty cool. And there were initial plans where I had invited a friend to come along, and some things had to shift. We had to readjust because some things came up, and so it ended up just being me and my other two friends that I mentioned. So I guess what I wanted to get into today was like, okay, so but the friend that I had invited also in addition, she had told me about something she was going to do that evening and see if I had time after the expo to still catch up. And so for me, I was like setting my energy to do all of that, communicating back and forth, planning. And so there was an open mic that happened that evening. And so once I did my thing with the expo, chit chatting and assisting with the workshop and sharing on all things spiritual, how I usually do, like in this podcast, I got a ride from my friend Neil, and then went over to Metro, made my way over, and it's funny because I was like freaking out about making it on time. Like, am I gonna miss a portion of it? And looking back now, I'm like, I would have been fine if I came in a little bit late. But got to see my friend and got to connect with other people there too, and it was great. And so at the event, I don't know if you're familiar with open mics, but my understanding is when it comes to open mics, usually there'll be like a theme or something, and there'll be like a place where people can sign up if they want to be able to talk, and it's like a first come first serve basis, and if there's time. And I remember the theme for that particular night was just to express and talk about the things keeping you up at night that perhaps can't get sleep because of it. At least that was my understanding of it. Just to be clear here. And so people were, doing, a lot of artists were doing things from just doing little performances, putting with their own songs and things that they were feeling inside that they wanted to express. And at a certain point for me, when I was at the table with a couple of my friends, I thought about going up there. And mind you, like when I'm in the shower, I've had daydreams about having a mic in my hand and speaking in front of people. I've had, aside from also having those moments of just singing my heart out when I'm feeling it, you know what I mean? You're within yourself. I'm like, man, I'm gonna sing the shit out of this song because I want to and I feel like it. So if not that, I'll definitely have my little monologues in the shower. Because sometimes I just feel the inspiration. I just want to flow and talk about something that's coming up, a particular topic. And so here, this was a moment where like, I need to do this. There was something in me that felt this draw, like there's something there. But mind you, I was feeling so nervous. There was a lot of things going on that was also contributing to the nervousness as well. Not just the performance piece. But that was a major portion of it. And it was bringing me back to my experience when I went to the retreat in New Zealand, where I make this decision to do something that I know is gonna be is meaningful, it's important, and I found myself having these doubts, these chit chat conversations in my head that weren't really constructive, weren't really like, oh, this and that, or you're gonna mess up, or this, or you're gonna look like a fool, and just the amount of over analyzing and dissecting is insane to me. Insane. But that's the intellectual nature for you. That's the nature of the beast, and part of the opportunity here on planet Earth is to work in balance of my intellect and feeling natures, bring them back together in harmony. You know, it's part of the process. But it brought me back to New Zealand because I remember I had set my energy to like made a decision to go swim in the cold water. But there was part of me that was like, oh no, get cold, or it's gonna feel too cold, or all this and that. You know, think about those moments for yourself when you felt like you decided to do something initially, and then all of a sudden you might have had a thought or something, a worry, a criticism come up, and maybe you might have retracted on your initial decision, or maybe you might have stuck through with it. Just whatever the case may be, you know. I hope this resonates and lets you know you're not alone in this. So back to the open mic. So I had put my name down, and I asked one of my friends that I was looking forward to seeing. I asked her to take some photos of me as well, because I was like, I want to I'm gonna do this and make content about it, talk about it. So just following through, and like as an outstanding executive, the gift of prophecy that exists in each and every single one of us, our executive part, to plan and to execute, to follow through. um that to me was just like a lot of power in that. So I set myself to do that, and I was just waiting and just watching other people's performances, because I was like ninth on the list down. So I was just like, the part that really gets me at times is like the waiting, the anticipation. That's what can eat me up if I'm not careful, if I'm not relaxed, and just enjoy the journey and where I'm at right now. Enjoy the performers that are going out there pouring their souls, sharing what's coming up for them through whatever medium that they use to express that. I even had to just go to the bathroom a couple times, with the butterflies and the nervousness and stuff, and then it's like the need to use the bathroom. The bladder's just like filling up quickly. So I, did what I had to do, and I even took some moment to cleanse myself, to get myself focused and pivoted, to work all this frantic, nervous energy that I've dealt with most of my life. And it's still an ongoing process. And then at that point, just when I thought I wasn't going to go up, just because I was just looking at the timing, I wasn't sure when this was going to end. And I thought, okay, maybe I might not go up anymore. But then at some point, I was like coming to peace with like, if I don't, at least I put my name in the hat, so to speak, rather than not having done anything at all or talk myself out of it. Because to me, that's one of the most damaging things I can do to myself in the abundance of opportunity that's presented to me, as it is to other people here in life, anywhere in life. So once at that point, my name came up. I was like, oh snap, I'm going up. And so my mother friend called me up, and who actually put together the whole open mic event, and it's a little shout out there to my friend Shadi, for putting it together. And so then he called me up. It was my turn. I was like, all right, cool, here I go. And mind you, like this was like in the heat of the moment, right? Like I didn't plan to go, and if it wasn't for my friend Serena that who told me about the open mic that evening, I wouldn't have gone. So I remember when I got into it, like again, I had nothing planned. Although I was like in my head trying to plan something. That's my prophetic part when it's out of balance. I like to do. It's like, oh, I need to get something. I need to prepare something. Like there's a time and place for it. But in this case, it was just like I was stretching myself out too much. So when I got up there, the first thing I did was just, all right, let's give a round of applause for all the people that have gone before me. Just to kind of ease myself into the opportunity to relax. I can remember even my guides were like expressing like excitement for me to just take that opportunity. I remember, you know, even beforehand, they're very giddy and just like childlike. And so I thank the people. I even shout out my friend Serena as well for telling me about it because I wouldn't have been there. All the folks that made that open mic possible and for me to be there. And then I started getting into it. And one of the things that I did plan to talk about was angels and talking about the practicality of, at least in my experience, well, not the practicality, or I make it a practical thing, but I think for me, at least talking to strangers, I just wanted to inspire hope and let them know that there's a lot of stuff going on. So like angels was the main focus for me, right? That was like, okay, I'm going to talk about angels. That was my intuitive sense of what I needed to talk about, right? Because I didn't have any poetry or nothing like that. But they allowed anybody, regardless if it was poetry or not, or if you wanted to just share something coming up, you were invited to do so. Again, which I'm so appreciative of. So I just started talking about, just like, let's see, what are some things that I started talking about? It's just talking about like there's so much in this world and it's amazing, it's awesome, but there's also the spiritual realm that's also we're all living in as well. And that's a lot of magical things like guardian angels that are working behind the scenes, doing a lot for us, more than I know I can be aware of. And it was between that and then also letting people know like, hey, I know things seem tough, but like just don't give up. Keep going and still show your best for people because that's what matters. The interactions that on our daily interactions, be it for a couple seconds with complete strangers, those are opportunities to be of service the way I see it. Again, I'm saying to say like I didn't mention that specifically, but that's just like one of the things that I mentioned to the people and my thoughts on that. Those interactions with people, it matters. I was talking about when I go on my commutes and I'm like crossing paths with other motorists in the streets as I make my commute. I'd wave and gesture to them because to me that's important. And so for me, all this to say, I want to just inspire people and just share, give them a reason to, at least to instill something, in these times that can feel very hopeless in the current climate politically here in the States. So it's a lot going on. I'm well aware of it and I feel it. So that's why that was my intention, is to help qualm that, to help people feel more hopeful. Just giving just my experiences. And so and I did my best to try to keep it compact, owning up unfolding my charisma, tapping into that. And at some point, I found myself like flowing, going through it. And then something that I had planned to do and I did it and I followed through on it was I decided to sing a song, and the song that I decided to sing was I Believe in Angels. And in fact, I just had the inspiration to to pull it up right here. Let me see how I feel about it. I might just I might sing it right now. So let's see here. Yeah, I'll let it be the last thing on this podcast before I'll let that be the final wrap up here. But I want to talk about some other things, just at least from that experience before I get to it. So, but it's amazing how just like for me that big takeaway is that when I decide something and having experiences where I know the real me is more powerful than any doubt or worry or analyzing or dissecting. That truly, I allow myself, I release myself so that I can have experiences, I can have the fulfillment and fun and whatever it is that I'm doing, you know? And a lot of this to say is like to just live, live life. Anything that comes up, you're thinking about, you've been putting off, to give yourself a chance and do it. Don't let those excuses tell you otherwise. Because 9 times out of 10, if you have a sense to do something, but yet you've been putting it off, there's a good chance there's something there for you spiritually. There's some growth there. There's that opportunity to be of service. If not for others, at least for yourself. All of this to say is for the sake of fulfillment. For the sake of fulfillment. And also, I would say, too, for some growth. And I think growth and fulfillment go hand in hand. For me, the way I see it, if I'm not growing, then I'm dying. Because there's genuinely a need that we all have as a soul. And I'm not saying that I have to make learning and growing a 24/7 job. It's just taking moments each day and just looking for some opportunities here and there. With some intention, moving with some intentionality day to day, but not stress about it. Learning and growing is not all suffering, or has to be like, learning and growing is not all growing pains. There is some fun and fulfillment in all that. And so, and I think for me, I'm glad I gave myself permission to do that, to follow through on that, because I felt like, I made something a reality that you would have daydreams about. And now I look to new opportunities and see, what else can I get myself into? What else do I have a need to experience? And set my energy and go forth and believe in myself and trust in myself. Those are some of the key things when it comes to, at least in all of this that I was sharing. Trust and belief in myself. And being open to whatever happens, whether it's a beautiful success or a wonderful, beautiful mess. It's mine. And the same thing I say for you. Your wonderful messes and successes, because it's all contributed to where you are now. And all of that has played a part, and all of it mattered. And all of it matters. And so, now to wrap this episode up, if you're finding yourself, feeling kind of down as well, with what's going on, I understand and I hear you. I get it. I feel it. But one of the things that I began to close off my little sharing before I got into my song, I shared that, going back to the whole trust thing, that no matter what, everything's going to be all right. And I've come to that conclusion, in that place where I feel it within myself, that my guardian angels, my spirit guides, my spiritual helpers, that they've shared the feeling with me. They've communicated to me. And that right there has been everything for me. That, and also just working with like-minded people who also get it. And so that's it for this episode. I'll wrap it up here, and I'll just do a little song here with a little mic check of the song that I sang there. I'll sing here for you, my friend, an exclusive. Here we go. I have a dream, a song to sing, and I can do most anything. If you see the wonder of a fairy tale, you can trust the future, knowing you won't fail. I believe in angels, something good in everything I see. I believe in angels, When I know the time is right for me, I'll cross the stream. I have a dream. I have a dream. No fantasy to see me through reality. And my destination makes it worth the while. With a clear direction, I go the extra mile. I believe in angels, something good in everything I see. I believe in angels when I know the time is right for me. I'll cross the stream. I have a dream. I'll cross the stream. I have a dream. And so this has been another episode of Spirit Engineered. I'm your host, Alvin Cepeda, signing out. And as always, take care, my dear friend.